Good start. You comfy down there?
Yeah.
We got her in. Bex, you got to scoot a little closer. Yep.
We're all. There you go.
Everybody in?
Tight fitted. We made it.
Yay!
Hooray! We're all so close.
This reminds me of when I used to work for a company called XY.TV. It was a startup in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and the guy who started the company, John Garabedian, he claimed to have invented the top 40 radio format. I don't know if that's true or not, but he did fund this startup internet TV company. And I worked on a show called Secret Lives. And it was a panel discussion where you had 3 to 4 guests, every one of them telling a story, but somebody was lying.
Oh.
And it was up to the audience to determine who it was, and also the members who were playing their parts. And we would cut away to reenactments and things like that. But one episode we actually tried maximizing the amount of space we had in our studio, and we sat on this couch and we were like this, and like this we are now very much reminds me of that. You got a little more elbow room down there, Doc.
I mean,
than I do down here.
You're good. I'm a big guy.
Here we go. That's right. Okay. Why don't we go ahead and start the show? What do you say, Doc?
I guess we could.
All right. Welcome everybody out there in Facebook and Instagram Live. You will notice we've got a different setup. You betcha we took the show on the road. We went from Florissant to St. Louis, and we are currently broadcasting from the headquarters, the lab of Curador. That's right, Curador. We have got Cory. We have got Bryan. How are we doing, guys?
Doing well.
Doing really well.
Gotta thank you all very much for letting us come down here to your place of business and letting us interview you like this.
Well, I'm glad you could find it. It's definitely in one of the more scenic parts of St. Louis, as you could say.
Well, it does have a river view, right?
It's got a river view, yeah. It's an industrial area.
You've got to look through the boxcars to get
You
to
gotta
the
look
river.
through, a little rubble past Procter Gamble and a couple railroad tracks, and there's some scenery there that you can get to. So
It's beautiful to me, okay?
the inside is where it all matters. The inside of is the lab that matters. Not the outside.
Well, it's got a really good vibe. It's got a really good vibe. The
Cool.
place you guys have chosen to have your business, really good vibe. Very industrial, fits in exactly with what you guys do. A large part of that is extractions.
Yes.
But before we get into exactly what they do here at Curador, we want to find out a little bit about the gentleman between us. So, guys, go ahead, introduce yourselves right to the cameras. First name, last name.
Hey, Brian Gilmer.
Hey, Cory Sanson. We're Curador Labs. A small piece of it, I should say. Yeah, small piece of Curador. But yeah, thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
So, how did you guys meet?
Oh, skateboarding and tattoos.
Skateboarding and tattoos.
Bryan and I had some mutual friends in the tattoo industry. I don't know if any of you could tell. We try not to hide them, but we're a tattooed bunch. Bryan and I met in 2018 just through a couple of mutual friends. Bryan was doing legal cannabis in Illinois. He was doing, for the time, Green Solution, and then they became Beyond Hello. I was working in the traditional market and was looking for opportunities for us to collaborate. Missouri started talking about ballot initiatives, and so we put a ton of effort, just like, I don't want to say lobbying, but just really just petitioning, trying to get the law passed through some fundraisers, and then decided that Curador was going to be the next chapter of our lives. So
Where did Curador come from? Curador.
yeah, so I guess the actual pronunciation would be Curador. It's a translation to natural healer or shaman. So we have a pretty heavy Spanish influence on our cap table. One of our founders is from Mexico originally, and so part of like our appreciation for diversity and culture is just utilizing things that maybe are not familiar to us. So Curador as a shaman was something that was really familiar to us. That word shaman, we felt like we were urban shamans, and trying to do something similar at a more natural level here in Missouri. Yeah.
Good
Nice.
shamans heal. So, Dylan, is that what motivates you guys? The fact that you want to help people feel better?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've always been drawn to cannabis from that aspect. I guess it used to be like hippie knowledge of sorts, but I've always seen it as how it's helped people and just kind of believe the science behind it. So, kind of continued to chase that, initial interest, and just kind of never really wanted to hit a wall in it. Just kept pushing through every bit of knowledge I could learn from patients and from, I don't know, the internet, magazines. I mean, it kind of has updated throughout the years, you know, being a decade and regulated, you know.
I think for me, it's more just like personally, I think everybody has like a story of like knowing somebody that's been affected by cannabis. Bryan and I, or I shouldn't say affected, has been positively affected by cannabis, right? A lot of people know my story a little bit. I got sober in 2013, utilized cannabis through the majority of that for any sort of surgery, ailment. I've had tracheostomy. I've had like my hands completely reset, sewn back together from being smashed. Utilized cannabis through all of it instead of opioids. So it was the first time that I had really got to see it work for me in my own life. I'd always heard people utilizing cannabis for pain, and I kind of thought it was like a gimmick. But whenever I was able to actually utilize it, I was pushing all the buzzers, waving all the flags, like, where have we been? Like, why hasn't anybody been talking about this? And to find out, like, everybody's been talking about it, you know what I mean? And so it's just cool to be part of a revolution in society, you know what I mean? I think it's a positive revolution that we're all getting into plant medicine, so.
Right on.
Yeah.
Before we go any further, Cory, anybody having any problems with hearing us? You can all hear us great out there? Fantastic.
Yay!
All right. So why don't we talk about some of the different types of extraction methods that there are out there?
Yeah.
A lot of our patients might not necessarily be familiar with the different types. So really quickly, what are the different types of extraction methods?
Yeah, for us, I think at a high level, alcohol extraction, hydrocarbon extraction, CO2 extraction, solventless or like a water-based extraction. That can get kind of looted and rabbit holey, but yeah, there's probably like those four main categories. Here at Curador, we focus primarily on like hydrocarbon extraction and then utilizing water, solventless stuff here.
Why did you choose hydrocarbon over another method of extraction?
The terps. Oh, it's all about the terps for us. Retention, terpene retention is like the name of the game for us. I was kind of explaining to you guys a little earlier, in butane as a solvent just grabs onto cannabinoids and terpenoids like a puzzle piece, leaving away all the stuff you don't want. We talk about it a lot in our processes. The terps and the cannabinoids are where all that magic sits, and that's what we want to preserve, that's what we want to retain. And so in butane, we've just found is great for both of those things. A lot of people don't realize is like with ethanol or CO2, like a CO2 extraction, you have to introduce ethanol at a certain point for it to be utilized, like in a vape cartridge. If you want to turn it to like a distillate, it's just not as high quality. I don't know how to explain it really other than that. Okay. Just in our experience, it's just the hash comes out better.
And that's what it's all about for you guys.
Yeah, it's all about the hash. All about the hash.
Okay, let's see. Are there any plans for solventless extraction methods in the future?
Yes. If the world worked out in our favor, we would already be doing it, but just like most things, there's some issues that prevented us from getting it. I mean, I think the biggest factor with solventless is having cultivars that work well for the extraction. Hydrocarbons can pretty much extract everything. Solventless, you have to have a specific cultivar where the trichome heads are easily able to break off. So there's a handful of strains that wash really, really well. We, as a lot of people know, we're a standalone operator MIP in the state of Missouri, so we rely heavily on cultivators for all of our input material. So having a cultivation partner that has the right genetics, has the quality that meets the standards to create solventless was like the initial barrier for us. We have an expansion space in the back. We've got most of it ready to go. We're hoping that here in the next month or two, we're gonna be able to offer some solventless here in Missouri. But it's just a process, yeah.
Speaking of processes, so what process is your major one at Headchange?
Yeah. So hydrocarbon extraction of fresh frozen material is our bread and butter for all of our hash, all of our sauce cards. We really put an emphasis on finding the best strains, the best cultivars, the best producers that we can get in Missouri, and that's what we use for ours. We've got a grading system that Bryan and I created a few years ago that if it doesn't hit a certain quality tier, it doesn't meet the standard for our fresh frozen SKUs. And so I'd say like hydrocarbon extraction, turning it into sugar, batter, and sauce carts are probably like our 3 biggest components of production here at Headchange.
Okay, nice. And what determines the type of concentrates you're going to make?
Ooh, one for our end, like initially it was like, hey, we can create crumble, we could create shatter, we could create batter. Bryan and I sat around and I was like, hey, so from your experience in retail, what do people find the easiest to dab?
Yeah, especially in an early market, it makes sense to, you know, not throw out a bunch of shatters that I've just heard numerous times. You get somebody excited to try a dab for the first time, and then they go home with a shatter that they may have heard of and been excited about, but the utilization of that, you know, is a little bit more difficult. So to get somebody already kind of educated into a new process, batter, it just is tackier. It fits to the tools a little better. It is just a lot easier, and you find people getting, you know, an easier first attempt. And I also just continue to love batter, so you know, just because it's not your first time doesn't mean you don't enjoy that consistency and just the, you know, the utilization of it.
Is that what you started on, batter?
Oh man, no, mine was a while back. It was some nasty like earwax, like but we've come a long way.
Before they had names for it, it was just like, this is all wax, this is all shatter, and this is earwax. There's all these things that just weren't
refined.
Weren't refined at the time. They weren't ready. It was ahead of its time.
Come a long way.
So so we do sugar, batter, diamonds, and sauce. They're super easy to conceptualize. You can go to another state and say like, hey, I know what diamonds and sauce are. I've seen it here. Hey, I know what batter looks like. I've seen it here. They also just have the most terps. Again, terps are the key component for us in our concentrates. They have to be saturated with it. Crumble, shatter tends to not retain terpenes as much as batter or sugar, diamonds.
Okay. And what kind of equipment do you need to make those types of things?
Don't do it at home. You need a Missouri license to do so. Trust and believe, it is a very dangerous process. Really proud of Missouri for not being on the news for people blowing up. You know, a closed loop system has been verified by a third party, something that is made with ACME stamped steel, a C1D1 booth so that you can purge out all the extracts, a vacuum oven to continually purge all the residual solvent out of it. There's a ton of different components to do different processes, but essentially a closed loop system and some sort of solvent recovery or purging mechanism like a vacuum oven.
Do you have to worry about any residual solvents, or I should say, do the patients have to worry about any residual solvents?
No, that's what's really cool about like a medical program. I think that like a lot of like in my experience, what I see most are people being like, man, I can just get concentrates on the black market that are X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, oh man, the process is dangerous. Like, if there isn't a third party validating that, hey, this product has test, it passes this, there isn't this level of butane in it, or it's met a standard which we feel is safe. You know what I mean? That's that puts reassurance in patients. We have a really strict standard that we have to go by the state, and every single one of our products has to pass various levels of testing to ensure it is safe. I know you guys.
What does the state say is safe?
Yeah,
what
so
levels?
the state says this 800 parts per million is what they like to see. We've seen it as high as like 5,000 parts per million in places like Colorado. That number might be inaccurate, maybe 3,000, but 3 zeros behind it. You know what I mean? Illinois, you have places like Illinois where it was like 15 parts per million. So you get really, really, really clean product. We pride ourselves on staying below 100 parts per million and are non-detectable at a lot of them. Again, I showed you guys a little bit of the tour earlier. We have a couple of proprietary processes that really make sure that ours get that extra sort of purge at the end, just because we want all the terps and nothing else, just a bunch of terps and cannabinoids. So
Terps.
the more of that you can get in there, the better, right?
So let me ask you guys, Dylan, what's a sign that you guys got a really good batch of biomass to work with?
Well, I mean, most of what we're running is going to be full nug run anyway. I mean, so not necessarily like a biomass. I guess there's kind of confusion on that, like large mass. But yeah, everything's going to be nug run.
And nug rug meaning?
Yeah, the full bud that you would, you know, the big nice colas that everybody likes seeing, right?
Okay.
And I would say, yeah, I mean, the smell is going to be number one because obviously, again, terps. We'll just keep adding that in there. But I would say, yeah, smells are probably one of the first things that we all are kind of like, you know, excited about or a little off put. You know, I mean, like if I'm a little less excited, it's probably because it didn't just smack me in the face with a smell prior to extraction. It's always going to have that like pungent after the processes. So to know that you had it at a flower, yeah, that's just kind of the whole excitement. Is like, how do I capture that now as I bring it and, you know, accentuate on it? So
Okay. Are there any curing methods out there that manufacturers use that are better than others, that give you a better batch to work with?
Cultivators, I guess. So we, for our finished flower, yes. There's, and I'm not the cultivation guy to say like, hey, you know, doing it for 14 days versus like 24 days. Everybody's got their own system. Right now we use Mama J's. It's a consultant group, Perfect Harvest from Heya. So they've got their own proprietary process for a lot of their flower. We found that they do a pretty good job at keeping that terp retention where it needs to be at. Again, with like dried material, it's less about maybe curing and more about storage. That's actually probably the best way to say it. Like a correctly fresh frozen pound is going to be sealed, but not too tight to where it's like everything's squished together. It's going to be uniform so that it can break apart. Similarly, like dried material, cured material is going to be stored in a dark place, a cool dark place. It's going to be airtight, so all the terpenes, all those flavonoids aren't being exposed to oxidation and therefore degrading over time. Again, it's probably less about curing for us and more about like, where has this been for the last month, like while we were waiting for it to come to us or whatever.
Okay.
I get that. So besides noids and terps, are there other elements that can be extracted from cannabis?
Yeah, I think that what we find in more like mature markets and like patients as they develop their cannabis acumen, they say, hey, you know, there's like sesquiterpenes, there's flavonoids, and while those things, I don't think we can ascertain them. I don't know if we can quantify them in an extraction yet. We can test for terpenes, right? We can see how much the terpene content is in there. We can test the cannabinoid content. Sesquiterpenes, monoterpenes, flavonoids, these are other components that really provide what Bryan will talk about, I'm sure, in a bit, is like the entourage, not the entourage, but the ensemble effect. And that is maybe a great segue to it. But
it's kind of recent. Dr. Grinspoon has read an article, and I just kind of was sold on it for how long I've been talking about, you know, the entourage effect, and just having it explained in a way that really does. Like, I mean, the true nature of the plant, from the second you're growing it, these growers are paying attention to the signs of the plant, right? And it's giving off these different answers that they're going to then correlate to get the best quality flower that they can. Us as manufacturers, if we can hold on to all of that natural, if we, you know,
Capture
not one
natural
thing is more important than the rest, right? Entourage, I guess, is kind of the best way to explain it. Entourage would be, this is important and everything else is important because they follow this one thing. But with an endocannabinoid system as unique to you as your thumbprint, in a plant that will continually have a different outcome of compounds, I mean, that's where I think every experience can come out with this benefit. It is a lot of trial and error, which gets kind of difficult, but if you hold on to every bit that you can naturally, I think you are getting a better medicinal, you know, outcome. Basically, you are able to kind of quantify, hey, these smells and these things are doing this, and it wasn't because something was separated or CRC was used or, you know, nothing was altered. We, you know, tried to keep it and contain it in the best quality that we can, because I do think that over, you know, 10 years of talking to patients, it seems to be full spectrum. The most, you know.
yeah.
And for those watching CRC, that's color remediation. That's where they take a bad batch of material, strip all the nasty looking color away from it, and all of a sudden you have fresh, brand new looking product. Well, that might not necessarily be the case. So you don't want anything that's been color remediated.
And we don't do that. Big emphasis on anti-CRC. We'll get into all that later.
Well, I learned about that at the CSO program in SLU.
Oh, okay.
And it was Dr. Cernicek from SINS that had asked us that question sort of from a moral perspective. Do you think color remediation is a moral thing to do?
Yeah, morally no. And I mean, I think it's like for us, like that's probably like the flag that we wave the most, is just being transparent. Again, we're patients. We really care that the product that we put out on the other side is something that we're stoked to buy. And I cannot tell you how many times I've looked at a jar that's golden, it's got these great rocks, and you open it up and it just has no odor. It smells like absolutely nothing, and it's just super underwhelming. And so I think that, again, we pride ourselves, it's like a peek into the grow room. You open a Headchange jar and just smacks you with all those terps that maybe CRC and some other remediation removes. So
Why don't we talk about some of the products that we have here in front of us?
100%.
It's a beauty.
So yeah, we'll talk about, I guess, our kind of whole line. Headchange obviously is our kind of premium kind of brand, and I hate using that word because I think everything that we do is premium, but it's branded. It's kind of like something that we're used to seeing more about, like our expressions of exploration, space, things that just really stand out to us. A Headchange is what we have always described as what we're looking for. It can be applicable to any situation. So I need a Headchange because I'm angry. I need a Headchange because I'm sad. I need a Headchange because I just am not where I need to be to feel myself. And so it allows, it's for any individual. And so to that point, we've created products that are what we have found is like the best expression. So we do flower, concentrates, sauce carts. Our process is pretty tried and true and simple. We find the best cultivars, the best varietals. We're super picky about what we grab, and we will find a strain like Grease Monkey. It's an easy one to talk about because everybody really likes it.
Yeah.
So Grease Monkey, we will offer it in a 1/2 The 1/2 is a unique option because sometimes I want an 1/8, but I'm torn between Grease Monkey and Mandarin cookies, and so I will get a mix and match 1/2. Or sometimes I have a really weird allotment and I have more than a gram left over, but not enough for me to get maybe like an 1/8. And so this is just a great compromise without having to get 2 grams. We found it's just something unique that really helps us stand out. And these are really cool to repurpose. If you dab, you can use these for your Q-tip holder. So upcycle. It's a huge component of Headchange. We have, again, so what we'll do is take that Grease Monkey and we'll capture it in a flower, and then we'll put it into some other of our favorite expressions. So live batter, live sugar, diamonds, and sauce. Those are the 3 primary hash expressions that we offer. All of the love and care that we put into our hash, again, no CRC, we don't use any sort of adulteration. It is all about capturing the true essence of the plant, bringing it down into these cool little containers. If you ever get one of our grams of hash, we have this cool little story that talks about us, our process, why it makes sense. A little bit of care tips. Always make sure you're keeping your lid on your jar whenever you're done using it, so that those terps that we work super hard to preserve are still there. And then
You
finally,
shouldn't leave it on the side though, should you?
oh no, lids up, terps down. That's the way that we look at it. If you keep the lid up, the terps stay down. It doesn't get that lid. We try really hard to help throughout the entire supply chain of making sure that our jars are upright. But if you ever see a jar and it's upside down, help a friend in need and just flip it for them, just in case, you know. Then we've got another little piece of cool information. Dab at temps between 400 and 550. A lot of people ask us that. How do you dab? Like, what is the ultimate dab? A dab for us is something that's captured around like 400, 550 degrees Fahrenheit. We use Puffcos, we use rigs, all of the components for hash that you've seen in traditional, e-nails. We've used all of them. We recommend that if you're going to use a rig, to get a temp control sort of mechanism so that you can see where your dab's are at, because there is nothing worse. Again, I have done this. Like, I have learned this pain for you guys. Buying like a really nice terpy dab and then just doing it, and it's super hot, so it tastes hot, and then your head's just like, and it tastes terrible. So
so low temp dabs to start, and then bring the temperature up so you can get the cannabinoids?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, it like between 400 and 550 degrees Fahrenheit, you're going to capture almost every. I mean, I don't think there's a single cannabinoid that doesn't have a boiling point around there. Most of it combusts around like 400, and so it gives a little bit of both. Like, I like to have that feeling of like it, that I know that I'm getting a hit, but I also like to have that terpy flavor, like to where it's exhale and it's on my palate all day, and those terps are just constantly like microdosing me. So long spiel on our concentrates, that same love and care that we put into our diamonds and sauce goes into our sauce carts. So sauce carts are like one of our most popular products in Missouri just because we put a ton of care into the actual product. We don't have it in here, but 100% diamonds and sauce in a cartridge. There's no distillate, no adulteration, no CRC. It is literally like a dab in a cartridge. So we have a ton of patients who come in and are like, oh, I wanted to try a concentrate, but I don't have that chemistry experiment that you have. And it's like, you don't have to worry about that. We have sauce carts. So that normal 510 thread that you're used to doing, that Bex and Jeff has told you guys, it'll work for a sauce cart, and it is a great way to introduce concentrate into your cannabis regimen without having to invest into a dab hardware. If that's something that you like, it's definitely maybe time to consider moving into dabbing. So all of Headchange products utilize reusable, reclaimed ocean plastic or sustainable packaging. Messages all throughout it. We really care about this planet. It's the only one we have, and we don't want Headchange products littered throughout the streets. So please recycle our stuff if you buy it. We really appreciate it.
I want to talk about these little guys right here.
Yeah.
Your 3-fers pre-rolls. I love these.
He talks
So
so
glad.
much about them at work, like at field state.
I really do love these. And it's not just because it's quality flower and you guys are great. It's because of the size.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a normal full gram pre-roll, you get about halfway through with it, it starts to get a little sticky, it doesn't draw as well, you're going to want to put it out. When you go back to it, it doesn't taste the same again.
Mm-hmm.
When you pull out a 3-fer, 0.3 gram pre-roll, you get a single solo sesh for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's over and done. It tastes the same way the entire way through. I love these guys. Thank you so much for making these.
Thank you for loving them.
Yeah. I'm super glad you love that.
I see you also offer full grams as
Yeah.
well.
100%.
And then blunts
yes.
as well. Now, I tried one of these.
Mm-hmm.
I had a problem with tobacco for years, finally gave it up. And someone said,
Congratulations.
thank you, 2.5 years.
Cool. Very cool.
And they said, you got to try the blunt. I'm like, I don't do tobacco anymore. He's like, no, it's hemp paper.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how can you make a blunt taste like a blunt using hemp paper? But I said, all right, I'm going to give it a shot. I pulled it out. It smelled like a blunt. It tasted like a blunt on my lips even before I drew on it. And when I lit it, it tasted just like a blunt. How?
Yeah.
How did you guys do this?
Yeah.
It's the team.
It's the team. It's the team. No, they care. Why and how? How? So we have we've been doing this for a really long time. Bryan has sold a bunch of really terrible joints that he was like, man, I can't believe people would put that out on the market. And I have bought a ton of joints that I said, man, I cannot believe somebody would put that out on the market. And so like SafeBet was literally born out of just the need. Headchange isn't really a pre-roll brand. SafeBet offers that exactly. It's super easy to conceptualize. It's affordable. It's not something that's exorbitant. All this, here's a secret. All the flour that doesn't meet the quality standard of Headchange is what we use for SafeBet. So we don't use any trim in SafeBet. It's 100% full flour. The stuff that a lot of dispensers are selling as smalls, we put into really premium pre-rolls because we want it to be an awesome experience every time. Blunt papers. Oh my God. Being from St. Louis, you smoke blunts. I feel like it's just part of it. You can't deny it. And so we were super stoked to offer a blunt, but we were really hesitant because it was like, man, you can't call it a blunt if it doesn't taste like a blunt. If it comes out underwhelming, it's a no-go. So it's vanilla and chamomile infused blunt. So it's got these really cool nodes of chamomile that I think come off of that like tobacco exhale, and I'm a huge fan of them. I think that's probably nobody expected it. It's probably like our most popular product is a SafeBet blunt. It flies off the shelf. We cannot produce enough of them. The team, you guys kind of saw a glimpse of it back there. Our team hand packs every single blunt, every single 3-fer, every single gram pre-roll. It is all by hand. You cannot cut corners on this process and it have the result that you want it to. And that's just the reality of it. And so, yeah, we really are stoked that you like blunts. It's tight.
Well, it's nice to be like a short, I don't know, just like the half gram just for like a personal, it still burns really slow. Like,
It's
to
perfect.
your
Even
point.
if you want to share, it's still cool.
Yeah.
It burns slow.
Well, and that's the thing. Your point with the threefers. That's like, I think, you know, in COVID times, it's the way you share without sharing. I cannot tell you how many times I pulled up to something and somebody's been like, "Man, you know, times are weird. I'm not participating." And it's just like, "Oh yeah, you can do your own thing. Don't let me get in the way of it." And to your point, a lot of people like the 1 gram and they put it out and they're like, "Man, way over medicated. I don't know what to do with this thing now." And the threefer is just like, it's the perfect amount. It gets you there. Yeah.
Facts.
Cool.
Facts. So let's see what's next on our questions here.
Well, why don't we see if we have any questions from the audience?
Yeah.
No? All right, everybody's.
Not going to be something that we're going to be talking about. Second side of it is just a good quality herb. Like Brian was talking about, we created a really cool grading scale that is a little bit of just like up here. You know, it's just like, oh yeah, that smells bad. I don't know how to quantify it to you in a number form, but it's not going to meet our standards. And so smell, bud structure, and
Well, people have been buying cannabis for a long time, you know?
It's got to be appealing to your eye.
yeah.
Well, eye, nose, you know? I mean, sometimes I guess that's kind of like that brain thing that we talk about. I mean, when you smell something, like, you should almost get what you're going to feel out of it. It's like, you know, and terps do. They tell you the endo system to start kicking in and get ready for the cannabinoid reception. So, you know, it's like you go to eat food, your nose gets a little smell to something, your mouth starts to salivate. That's to break food down. So with cannabis, you smell it, you get all those same, I don't know, get your brain salivating. I don't know if that's even like a thing, but
No, I get that.
Yeah, I think the nose is like is something that you guys have said as well
Yes.
a bunch,
Nose
and that's something that we really believe in. It's again, it kind of goes back to that. The Ensemble effect is like every cultivar. You may have a cultivar that you really like. You really liked this Grease Monkey, and it had this terpene profile and this cannabinoid profile. As a grower, as a manufacturer, as a retailer, to say that it is going to be that way every single time is just you're lying. And so it's like there's so much varietal that goes into it every single time that we've had a batch of Grease Monkey that we're like, oh man, it's not smelling like it's, you know, it wasn't hitting like that last one. You know what I mean? And so you just find those sort of factors really determine like what we put into ours.
So we got a question here from Big7Bando_Griff. Will you all have cheaper shake pack for hard times?
Ooh, and trust and believe, man. I wave the flag to the DHSS every day to give us a cultivation license. It's not in the cards for that side right now. So we are working diligently with cultivators to try to find an option through SafeBet that will be like a smalls, you know, kind of roll ready is what we call it. So
Okay.
we are working on it. Yes.
Now we've got a.
That's what's cool about us. We're from here, so we're not going anywhere. We really, believe in doing right by St. Louis and doing right by Missouri, and we just want to be still in this market. Obviously, hopefully, adult use is coming, and we're able to participate in that. But for right now, we're just wanting to keep this consistent. We don't want the consistency to go down. We just want every week it to get better and better.
Well, like you guys told us when we walked on the tour, you said all the money is in the concentrates.
Yeah.
That's why it's card tables and folding chairs.
Yeah.
And nothing fancy.
Yeah, and that's the truth. I think we've spent. Everything that we do is just making sure that our team. Again, it's our team. It's very much so not Brian and I as much as our team back there. They kill it day after day. It's like I don't give enough gratitude out in the world for how awesome they are. We just we're really blessed to have a cool team that like cares about the plant as much as we do. So it makes our job actually like super easy.
Made with love.
Yeah.
Speaking of products, are there any products that you want to be making that you aren't making right now?
Oh, solventless. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody that knows us is like, oh man, if we were at solventless, it would be we'd have a trampoline in here doing it. We're stoked on solventless. edible iterations utilizing those sort of mediums as well, like solventless edibles, I think is something that we're looking forward to. And that roll ready. Thanks to anybody, to the person that asked about the roll ready. I'm definitely ready for some SafeBet roll ready pouches.
Okay. What does the future of extraction hold?
For the market?
Yeah. Ultrasonic or microwave?
Different extraction methods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Man, I think as long. Right now we're at this interesting. Maybe it's like my interest has halted a little bit. I felt like from 2018 to 2021, there was a ton of emphasis on innovation and creating new pieces of equipment. I think generally extraction of active ingredients has been determined. I think it's more about like the practice being integrated into commercial cannabis. So like ultrasonic microwave extraction. There are some groups that are doing some really, really phenomenal stuff with that, isolating certain cannabinoids and able to produce things at a scale that is much cheaper than if you were utilizing just like raw biomass and stuff, or a traditional extraction like ethanol, for like larger scale stuff. I think for us as a market, everybody will probably be doing try to do some form of solventless if they're interested in that craft dabbable side.
What about hash? Like honest to goodness, take a straight razor blade and slice off a thin slice of hash.
Yeah, so solventless, like the water extraction, like that's where you're gonna get to. What's super interesting about cannabis is that we spent all of this time trying to get all this technology and innovation in just to resort back to like the most ancient form of doing it. Is like, oh man, if it wasn't made by a guy like with rocks in his bare hands, I don't want it. You know what I mean? It's like, but that's really the reality of it. And so solventless is where a lot of people will go. Taking water extraction, like removing chemicals from the process is always going to be it. I've just found that, like, I think Bryan can attest to this too, like once you start utilizing cannabis, other aspects of your life tend to fall towards more like organic, natural inputs. So people start saying like, wait a second, why this or why that? So it just comes down to, what the market is being told is safe, what perception is, and I think that solventless, utilizing water, just creates a nice product that people are excited about. So that's where I see extraction going to. What about you?
Yeah, no, I'd say the same. Yeah, I mean, I think, again, anybody that you talk to, it starts with just cannabis, and then as you continue to learn and get a little more comfortable, like, I don't know, it does. It seems to very ironically start touching, like, I'm going to eat a little healthier. I am going to drink a little more water. And yeah, I mean, I think as more and more people hit that, then the push is going to continue to dominate in that section of how do we get more natural, how do we get back to the archaic ways, and maybe just with new equipment, but yeah.
All right.
Dope.
Well, I guess we really only got one more question we got to ask here, and specifically to you, Cory. Did you see me on the Jumbotron at the Blues game?
Yes. When I saw the question, I did, and I saw you there. So I, for being a St. Louis guy, I went to like my first hockey game, like 2 months ago. Don't tell anybody.
Wow.
Yeah,
Did you guys hear
I know.
that?
Yeah, I'm a poser, STL poser.
He's not from here, guys.
So they, being the total guy, I'm like, I know that guy! I know him! And they're like, yeah, this happens all the time. You see people you know.
So, well, I saw you too. They were panning across the people you were sitting with.
Nice, okay.
But I also saw you in between periods.
Yes.
You were with your entourage going this way, I was going that way.
Okay, I did not see you
We
on
didn't,
that one.
yeah.
Man, stop me. I will talk to you.
All right.
I'll talk to anybody.
Sorry, you're too cool for this, Cory.
I'm not too cool for anybody.
Looks like we got another question over
Oh,
here.
yes. Mr. Big 7 Bando Griff. Oh, Johnny Depp, sorry. What's the recommendation for storing concentrates?
Ooh.
Oh, awesome question.
Yeah, fridge. I would say, yeah, we're, 30, 35?
Yeah, so anything that's like below freezing is a no bueno. We don't recommend putting it in the actual freezer, because then what'll happen is it'll like, most people don't have like airtight, humidity, whatever freezers that are designed for hash. So a fridge is great. Freezers sometimes create condensation. Then your hash might like get frosty and wet, and it's a nightmare.
So you don't want to go back and forth between a freezer or a refrigerator. Or
I like
that?
fridge. Yeah, fridge is the tightest for me. We have these things that we're supposed to be launching, like these little hash fridges that say Headchange on them and stuff. They're really convenient for that purpose. The best way to store your hash is with the lid on. I will say that one. So many people just like leave the hash with the lid off, and I'm just like, every second that that's open, you're just like, all this good stuff just dissipating into the air, essentially. So, with the lid on and in the fridge.
What's the shelf life for concentrate?
Like a year, if you in my experience. I mean, like cannabis expiration date, like, oh man, it'll start tasting less pleasant after like 3 months. You know what I mean? And then by 6 months, it's definitely gonna lose some flavor. By a year, depending on the storage and stuff, it's gonna be not gonna have the similar profile. It'll probably most terpenes I found, like after time being oxidized, develop into like a beta carefulane and get that like really peppery aroma to them. So
okay, so
We got
jars
another
down,
one.
lids up,
All right.
Fridge, not freezer.
fridge not freezer.
Big Seven Bando Griff has asked, do you all have your own cannabis brand?
yeah, I mean, so like Headchange is like our brand. So I guess like Bryan and I, we started Headchange and SafeBet here. Curador is like the license name, but Headchange is the brand, and then SafeBet is another brand underneath that. You know what I mean? So
And the flour that is in these containers.
yeah, and so the flower that is cultivated at a Hayal license by a group, Mama J's. Really cool guys. Give them a follow at mamas_J's. Good people.
Okay.
Cool.
Want to give a quick shout out to some of our personal favorite followers, Bobby, Juanita. Hey, what's up?
What's up?
How y'all doing? Thanks for joining us. And we got Nick. Hey, Nick. And Steve. What's up, y'all?
What's
Thank
up?
you so
Guys,
much
thanks for tuning in.
joining.
Thank you.
I'm almost thinking that it's almost time to wrap this
Time to
up
wrap
on the
this up.
road.
Cool.
So
We said our
guys,
hellos, and now it's about time to say our goodbyes. But what were you saying?
Well, I was going to say, what are we going to talk about on next week's Fields?
Ooh. Do you want me to spoil it?
Yeah, go ahead, spoil it.
I believe next week we are talking with Bell Chiropractic
Ooh, nice.
in Florissant.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Bell Chiropractic in Florissant. We will be interviewing them next week. So stay tuned.
Check it out. All right, Corey.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank
so much.
you. Dylan.
Hey.
Thank
Love
you so
you
much, Brian.
guys.